The stretch of sand and wild jungle on the eastern edge of Lustria, known as the Vampire Coast, owes its name to a rather unfortunate Norscan raiding party which, as is the way of their kind, attacked an Empire merchant ship and took everything of value from within its holds. Unfortunately for those raiders, this included the sarcophagus of Luthor Harkon, a vampire sired in Lamia millennia before by a blood dragon named Abarash, and by the time the longship broke apart on the shores of Lustria, all its crew had undergone a marked change in both allegiance and vital signs. Though stranded many thousands of miles from home, Luthor Harkon never looked back and took his new zombie friends on a march of conquest, carving out a realm for himself in the steaming jungles of the New World. Essentially the Bermuda Triangle of the Warhammer world, this stretch of coastline proved to be incredibly treacherous for traders and pirates making their way from Sartosa and Skegi, and over the course of several hundred years, Luthor built a pirate fleet with the swollen, lifeless corpses of those damned sailors, and crewed their ships with his newly turned minions. Harkon himself might have become a great power in Lustria, but for his colossal pride and greed. His expeditions into the heart of Lizardman country granted him deep knowledge and power as his treasure trove of ancient artifacts grew ever larger, but to meddle with devices from a bygone age is to invite disaster. And he learned this the hard way when a psychic backlash from one such device in the ruined city of Huatl fractured his mind into no less than a dozen personalities, which quickly battled for control of his sanity. Since that fateful day, the disciple of the first blood dragon has sought to mend his wild schizophrenia, which inevitably led him down the same path that screwed him in the first place, a never-ending search for Old One's artifacts that might reconnect him to the winds of magic and grant his troubled mind a much-needed rest. Lord Mazdamundi, preeminent living Slan and ruler of Hexadol, the Solar City, is no stranger to the hordes of undead that haunt his empire's eastern borders. On countless occasions, Harkon, in the throes of his madness, has led massive, doomed incursions towards Itza and the various temple cities and ruins that dot the continent. Previous expeditions may have been turned and smashed aside by a blink and flick of a bulbous finger from the mage priest, but this is no ordinary invasion. Shaiish is rising, and the wind of death blows strong from the poles of the planet. The Arch-Grand Commodore is looking for something in the Mortuary of Tzulaqua, a long, undisturbed crypt best left that way, and this undead presence cannot be tolerated by the children of the Old Ones. Perhaps the great plan remains cloudy and unfocused, but surely a vampire and his rotting thralls will play no part in it. So the Temple Guard, Kroxigors, and blessed spawnings of the City of the Sun sally forth, ready to send the Blood Knights, Whites, and corrupted filth that surround them, flocking to his side, back into the dirt from whence they came. And so, in the deep, dark caverns of the mortuary, where relic priests from a bygone age sleep away the centuries, Lord Mazdamundi will defend mummified mages from the clutches of a power-hungry and utterly insane vampire tyrant, with a tantalizing glimpse of sunlight from hundreds of feet above. That is absolutely beautiful. The undead of the Vampire Coast and Lizardmen of Lustria are about to lay the smackdown on each other, so let's get into it. We are playing Radius mod for Total War Warhammer 2, keeping it relatively lore-friendly with the unit selection here. A lot of actually interesting units. So, in Radius, we actually have access to the Blessed Spawning. So, these are lizardmen that are born under the influence of one or more of their gods, the Old Ones. We're getting a good look at the Blessed Saurus, but there are Blessed Temple Guard, Blessed Stegadons, and a Blessed Carnosaur that has like 92 move speed base, so way faster than the traditional Carnosaur. So they all have better stats than their counterparts. Now shifting over to the undead horde of Luthor Harkon in the Vampire Coast, zombies shambling into view, skeleton warriors marching in lockstep, Crypt Horrors and Crypt Ghouls running behind them, Blood Knights on the field as well. And this is on Radius, which is available. The mod workshop is actually going to become available in about 2 days, on Thursday, I believe. So all the mods that we've been looking forward to will start coming out once that happens. But I couldn't wait that long. I really wanted to play some of the Game 1 factions in Game 2. And so I'm bringing you this replay where we get to see the vampire counts and the lizardmen go at it. So not technically the vampire counts, of course. These are the Vampire Coast, which is not the same family as the Von Karsteins, but still cool to see the vampires in action. Now, my vampire lord on his zombie dragon moving forward, he will get Net of Ammontoct, and that's a lot of Stegadons with a lot of power shooting in there with their gigantic bolt throwers, Kroxigors, looking on as pestilent breath from the zombie dragon. I believe that might be the first good look we've gotten at it. will go through those Kroxigors and kill a few, do a little bit of HP damage there. And Mazdamundi will cast Arcane Unforging on him, which will do quite a bit of single target damage to the Vampire Lord. I do have Invocation of the Heck to get him back up to full, but that net Overcast is lasting a super long time. And a good look at the Blessed Temple Guard here in the back lines. And Blessed Stegadon is on the field as well. And out on the right flank, bunch of Cold One Riders with spears. Bonus versus large and armor piercing can be pretty powerful, even against my Blood Knights, if they're used to their fullest potential. So we're going to have to be careful about that. Pretty similar amounts of cav and fun sunk into each player's cav on the field. So the cavalry fight should be very interesting. But zombies have engaged the Saurus in the front lines. And of course, as you might imagine, Saurus will be able to cut through quite a few zombies and skeletons before they go down. Blessed Saurus ready to get in on the action as well as the first wave of zombies shambles into view. And they're going to get bisected by those gigantic Maqueedles. And Saurus will rip them, eat them, and basically spank them into the ground. Hey, Lizardmen are kinky too, man. Praise be to Slanesh, am I right, boys? That's a Coven of Cassandora on the way, ripping a hole in the fabric of reality, and about to pancake a few dozen Graveguard into oblivion. Always super satisfying to see that. Oh my god. Beautiful. Awesome spell right there. Now, things to be aware of radius while we watch this replay unfold. Bigger HP pools on units, slightly longer melee combat, better morale, and army losses penalty does kick in significantly later. So, the cool thing about the non-lore friendly units and about this mod in general, if you don't like those non-lore friendly units, you don't have to use them. I'm extremely appreciative he was able to get this mod out so quickly and give people a chance to play Game 1 races before Mortal Empires even releases, so big thanks to the mod team on that front. Let's focus on the battle though. So zombies and Graveguard getting around the flank. I'm trying to get into the rear, in behind, and get some rear charges off with my Blood Knights and with my Graveguard. But he does have some Kroxigors and some Blessed Saurus waiting for me, waiting for that inevitable flanking attempt. The Blessed Saurus in the front lines doing a fantastic job holding the line here. But my Blood Knights and my Black Knights moving forward, and they will get a flanking charge into the sides of these Cold Ones. They will get their charge bonus off though, so it's not going to be disastrous for them. But it will be a very interesting fight. Black Knights will get wrecked by Cold One Spear Riders, I believe. Blood Knights, though, that's a different level of cavalry. 1,700 gold, bonus versus large, and armor piercing. Going to give them some really nice damage output. I don't believe Blood Knights actually have the armor piercing trait on their unit card, but they have a decent amount of armor piercing. They're definitely great in a cav fight. So, in the center here, Scarvet on top of his gigantic Carnosaur, holding a line, smacking some Crypt Horrors with his tail, and zombies being risen in the back lines will give a bit of a morale shock, a bit of a rear charging penalty off on those Saurus and the Temple Guard. But in Radius, with the way morale works and the fact that all these Saurus and Temple Guard are going to be supported by Mazdamundi and the Scarvet anyway, means they're probably not going to be routing to rear charges from zombies. So leadership shouldn't be too much of an issue for the children of the old ones here, as I tried to swarm and basically just overwhelm them with pure numbers. Shifting over the Blessed Stegadon, doing what it does best, smacking hordes of undead around, sending them back into the abyss. And looks like another Comet of Cassandora about to fall. Maybe a banishment. Cold One Riders landing. Net of Amintok has landed and actually prevented those halberds from getting into reinforcing the Blood Knights. That's a big deal, because those halberds would turn the cav fight in the Vampire's favor without any question whatsoever. So holding it back as long as possible, very, very good. But they do need some more support over on the right flank. Blood Knights did get a rear charge into the back of the Blessed Temple Guard. Very, very important. Rear charge from Blood Knights can pretty much send any elite troop into crybaby mode. I mean, that's elite shot cavalry, elite vampire shot cav, which is another tier entirely than what pretty much anything that we have in Game 2, actually. Even Dragon Princes 1v1 will not fare very well against Blood Knights in a cav fight. And so you're getting rear charged by that. Not gonna give you a very good day. And the Graveguard halberds have finally made it in, and now the Cold Ones are being outflanked and surrounded. They should have had more support. Shield of Safari going down, buffing up the entire Lizardman right flank and making sure that magic doesn't really do any damage to them. Would prevent a Wind of Death or something, but wasn't a lot of magic coming in. Right now, the Zombie Dragon and the Vampire Lord are much more focused on making sure that zombies are being risen in the back lines as a Stegadon runs off the field way too close to the edge of the map, and that means the Stegadon will not come back, although it was very low HP. so I'm not sure how much more damage it would have done anyway. But considering how many skeletons and Graveguard are on the field, probably a sliver of HP on a Stegadon is still like 3,000, 4,000 HP. Probably could have done all right there. Vargulf in the mix, and the Revivification Crystal, the hardest pronunciation ever, but I got it right. Revivification Crystal Bastiladon anchoring the line, keeping every unit topped off, or as many as it can. And yeah, the right flank will definitely fall, and that will allow the Cav to start getting into the squishy targets in the back if they're able to flank around. But there are reserves for Lizardmen still. Not everything is completely tied down in melee. Zombie Dragon has finally been committed, and this is where the corrosive breath, the noxious fumes, and the rotting flesh of that gigantic hulking monstrosity will really be brought to bear. And Saurus Warriors, not going to match up very well versus Zombie Dragon, but Temple Guard, on the other hand, will. They do have AP, they do have bonus versus large, so that might not be a bad option for them. And the Zombie Dragon, Luthor Harkon, are going to nope on out of there. They don't want to deal with the most highly trained Saurus Warriors in the Old One's arsenal. Bastiladon, god dang, that was brutal. Doing some work there. Now, Scarvet, surrounded by Blood Knights, which I would not say is where it wants to be, but it also has AP and bonus versus large, so I'm not sure Blood Knights want to be there either. And they will pull out, because a Scarvet, an angry Carnosaur, and an angry Scar Veteran are really not an easy target to take down, even for elite shot cavalry like the Blood Knights. Black Knights dealing with the remnants of the Cold One cavalry, but not very many of them left at this point. It's fighting to the death, though. Very impressive there. And yeah, you can see the morale is definitely holds out a lot stronger in Radius than it does in Vanilla. And Lizardmen are holding strong for now. Kroxigors wading in and just laying about with those gigantic axes. What is that? That's Apotheosis. So Mazdamundi has been buffing up a lot of the main line with heals and big rear charge coming in from the Blood Knights. That should precipitate a collapse of the Lizardmen left flank as well, at least on the very edge near the end of the map. So, the numbers of the Lizardmen are beginning to get whittled down here, no question about that, but the dinosaurs are another question entirely. And the Halberds will provide some extra bonus versus large here against the Kroxigors, and this is not something you have in Vanilla, although I do believe the Graveguard with Halberds was an option in Tabletop, maybe not in 8th, please correct me if I'm wrong about that. I'm not sure. I think they actually did have access to Halberds in 8th. So it's not weird. It's not weird that Graveguard would even be able to get access to Halberds. So they are going to give a nice little option here that you don't have Vanilla to deal with all the big dinosaurs, but there aren't a ton of them on the field either. So an Ancient Stegadon, a Scarvet on a Carnosaur might still prove to be too much for Halberds alone to deal with. There are Blood Knights still on the field as well. There is still a Zombie Dragon with quite a big Winds of Magic pool. That is one thing I neglected to mention. In Radius, you have a 50 Winds of Magic pool, and it gets even... You have much more reserves as well, so you can do a lot more casting in Radius as well. Zombie Dragon and Vargulf working in tandem to beat on each end of those Saurus Warriors. Blessed Spawnings getting sent tumbling to the ground, sprawling, being eaten alive. Not a good way to go, being eaten alive by a gigantic undead Zombie Dragon. And the Bastiladon has done quite a bit of work for Lizardmen here, as all the monsters are starting to conglomerate over on the eastern edge of the map, near the mortuary itself, in the shadow of that sprawling temple. The Temple Guard have gotten Apotheosis, so they'll cause fear, which of course won't affect the vampire counts in any way, because everything they have and their mother and brother all cause fear and terror. But the heal will keep them in the fight for longer, and the Revivification Crystal will also help out. But Banishment over on a big blob of Graveguard and Blood Knights, killing quite a few there. And the Crypt Horrors are surrounding the Carnosaur, trying their best to take it down. Poison will slow it down and make it a lot harder for that thing to pull out of combat. And you can see the big mass of those Crypt Horrors is definitely making it harder for the Carnosaur to move and use the mobility that it typically can utilize to charge in and charge out and be a threat on the flanks. Luthor Harkon's landed in the middle of the Lizardmen line, but to be honest, there's not much of a line at this point. There's not much infantry left on the field for the Lizardmen. It's mostly the big dinosaurs. And that is where the vampire cats traditionally do kind of struggle a bit. Gaze in the Gash going off, smacking the Scarvet, killing him, and killing the Carnosaur as well as they try to run away from the Blood Knights. Beautiful magic missile there. and that thing will do damage from range. So the Gaze of Nagash is different than some of the other magic missiles in the game in that you want to be far away because it gives time for the missiles to conglomerate, again, I'm going to use that word, into one actual missile. So it starts out as like 9 different little mini missiles, and then the further away the target is, the more time it allows them all to form into one big missile, and so everything hits. If you're really close by, then a lot of the missiles will actually miss their target, and they'll do a lot less damage. But you do it from range, it'll do a lot more damage, and so it was able to kill the Carnosaur as it ran away there. So pretty big there to make sure that it can't come back. That was a big anchor for the Lizardmen line. Very powerful unit. It's now dead. Mazdamundian's Lock, though, the ancient Stegadon, the most famous mount in the Lizardmen roster, except maybe Grimlock the Carnosaur, going to work in the middle of a bunch of Crypt Ghouls and Crypt Horrors, and using that telekinesis and all that Old One's power to deal as much damage as possible. Apotheosis going off again. Zombie Dragon really doesn't want to land in this fight, honestly. If he does, Stegadons could beat the crap out of him. Another Gaze of Nagash into the Basiladon this time. Will that cause it to run away? It's got to be pretty low at this point. Actually just headbutted a Crypt Horror and killed it. This is awesome. I love the Ankylosaurus model on it. It's just such a... I love dinosaurs in general. I think, honestly, most of us do. Most of us probably had a dinosaur phase growing up. Being able to see all these real-life dinosaurs get turned into Warhammer style with a bunch of crazy crystals and magic attached to them is just incredibly cool. Now this one, trying to make it to the edge of the map, but will it be able to? Zombie Dragon and the Vampire Lord about to cast Gaze of Nagash, and that will take it all the way down, actually, to 1 HP. Literally, this thing has 1 HP remaining after that magic missile cast. Don't think I've ever seen that before. Something get away at 1 HP, but will it get away? It's still trying desperately. It won't come back to the fight, no question about that. Zombie Dragon attacking into the flank. The Skinks on top will fall, and the monstrosity will fall as well. That will make a fine meal for the undead horde once this is all over. Shield of Safari going off. Mazdamundi desperately trying to keep the Lizardmen in the fight, but in the shadow of the Mortuary of Tzulaqua, I don't know if the Lizardmen are going to be able to turn this one. Against another faction, if they weren't fighting undead, this might be okay for them, because they could cause some terror routes. They could definitely cause some kind of chain routing. But against the zombies, against the Blood Knights and the Crypt Horrors and all these technically unbreakable units that do have morale, but it's more about leadership, and they don't get affected by fear or terror, it's just not going to help. It's not going to help. They don't have enough killing power at this point. There's not much crumbling going on right now, though, to be honest. The undead hordes of Luthor Harkon are not in great shape either. Gaze of Nagash going off again, killing a few Kroxigors and a few Saurus as they try to run away, leaving their Slan Mage Priest to the mercies of the undead, and that will be the end of the battle. Really fun one. I really like these battles where we get to just roleplay a bit, and honestly, I do like banging out those intros too. Those are a lot of fun. But yeah, that was honestly a very close battle. Zombie Dragon and everything else, there wasn't much left. Blood Knights, super low model count. Less than a couple hundred remaining, I would think. But really fun. Super fun battle. So looking at the kills here, Mazdamundi says he has 312, but it was probably more like 500 because Common of Cassandora doesn't count towards kills, which is really dumb. It needs to get changed, honestly, like really badly. But he missed his Ruination of Cities at the end there. It was kind of funny, but he did it too close to his body. So when he cast it finally too far away, it went off, but it missed everything. And then everything was like over 200, 300 kills. So hope you guys enjoyed. Really fun. And I'll be bringing you some more content from Radius very soon. See you guys next time.